Good evening and welcome, everyone. I'm Neena Gopal. It's a rare privilege for audiences in Bangalore to hear about an issue such as Kurdistan. And we must commend Mr. Leo Saldana, the Environment Support Group. Commend you for bringing, such an important person for us to interact with at the Bangalore International Center. The fight by the Kurds to have their own state for freedom of expression, for women's rights, has deep resonance across people, across borders. Who better to give us an insight into the years of struggle that has gone into creating the Kurdish enclaves than the Kurdish de facto foreign minister and spokesperson, Nilüfer Koç. It's wonderful to meet you. She was herself a refugee who fled as a child to Germany and espouses the Kurdish struggle for a model state. Ms. Koç, it would be great if you could take us through this ongoing battle for a Kurdish state for the 50 million Kurds spread across 4 countries. Apparently, they're in Syria, Iran, Iraq, and Turkey. And what you personally have fought for in terms of women's rights, and this new Kurdish enclave that now exists in northern Syria, Rojava. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. That the Kurdish people insist is not a separate state, but a model for a future Syria. The de facto state in Iraq, Kurdistan, of course, has existed pre the Saddam Hussein era, and now post-Saddam enjoys self-rule, which is also a great development. Incidentally, I believe Mosul is one of the only universities in the world where Aramaic, the language spoken by Jesus Christ, is taught. A warm welcome to you, Ms. Nilüfer Koç. The floor is yours.
Thank you for Neena for the introduction, and also thank you, Leo, to bring me again after 50 years back to Bangalore. I was here already 2008. It's my second time, and I love to come to this city. So I have also now a few more friends like Bhargavi Rao also, and I hope all of yours will become my next friends. Well, you would ask, what is the women doing in India? What has the Kurdish cause to do with India? So let's remind you that every local problem today is a global problem, by saying. So my job is to find the connecting points of the globality and locality. And in this, I came to India, and I'm traveling a lot around the world, just to urge the states to say the existence of 50 million Kurds is under threat. We have an opponent who improved the strategy, and in this strategy he seeks the Kurds as an obstacle and want to, through ethnic cleansing, to eliminate them. These are the Kurds. And the opponent is the Turkish regime under its current president, Recep Tayyip Erdogan. And the increase of the aggression now between us and the Turks has something to do with the changes in Middle East as a result of global changes. We say since 30 years there's a vacuum, political vacuum in Middle East after the collapse of Soviet Union, the interventions by the US in Afghanistan, every other place, Iraq, Syria, the whole region is burning. The region of West, you call it West Asia, we say Middle East. And this particular part of history, beginning from the 90s, offered us new opportunities. Because we lost once the opportunity in the history. It was 100 years before the First World War. There have been similar opportunities we lost. We haven't been organized well as Kurds. We have been organized in tribal structures. And for the first time, we faced building of nation states in the region, which was brought by the European colonialists, mainly by the British, to implement nation states over the former territories of the Ottoman Empire, which was collapsing already in the beginning of the 20th century. And these tribal structures of the Kurds is one side is good for the Kurds when they have a democratic understanding, because tribal structures have been always very autonomously. So the people have been able to care on their own, to care for their own needs. That's the good side of a society. But the other part, the bad side is if you're just locally organized and don't see what's going on around you, then you are threatened like we have been facing this 100 years ago. Why I'm talking about 100 years ago? Because when the European came to the region, to the Middle Eastern region, and starting deepening the collapsing process of the Ottoman Empire, they start to draw new borders in the region, Middle East. The Ottoman Empire, you know, was huge. It has a history of rule of 7 centuries and was very welfare empire. And what the British and France did, it was a time of industrialism in Europe. They have been looking for natural resources, cheap labor, exploitation, so was on their agenda. You know this from history of India. So they came, and what they did was, firstly, destroying the harmony between the ethnic groups. Middle East is full of ethnic groups, full of religion. You know, it's a center of the 3 main monotheistic religion, Islam, Judaism, Christianity came from the region. Using all the religious groups against each other, using the ethnic groups against each other, so accordingly to the policy divide and rule, which they have implemented successfully. So they promised the Armenians, we will give you Armenian state when we weaken the Ottomans. They promised to the Syrianic people, we give you Syrianic empire again. They promised to the Kurds, we will give you greater Kurdistan. In the end, what we have seen, they have used us against each other. This part of history is very important. So then in 1916, the map was drawn by Britain and France, the so-called Sykes-Picot Agreement from 1916. They already start to say, well, one part will come to my territory, the other part will be yours. And in the end, after 8 years later, when the First World War was finished, the victors of the World War, France and Britain, have been finalizing the map in the city of Lausanne in Switzerland. So it was exactly on the 24th of July, 1923. So in these 100 years, what they have done was, when they sit in the conferences in the city of Lausanne, the conferences took 8 months' time. In every meeting, they were talking which village they should give to Turkey, the Kurdish village, which they should give to Iraq, and which to Iran, and which to Syria. And as you can see, all the borders, the lines are very artificial because they have been made on table. So, but they said, well, we have a problem in Middle East, so the Turks are the descendants of the Ottoman Empire, and they would never give us the territories. What we should do, we should keep Turks busy. We will found a state for the Turks, and then controlling the state through the Kurds. So what they did was, after the signing of the agreement, 3 months later, they founded the Turkish Republic. And they knew that the Turkish Republic are built by Turks who understood themselves as the descendants of the great Ottoman Empire and would be never satisfied with the new map. So they said, okay, we need to create problem for the Turks. And for this reason, what they did was denying the existence of the Kurds. What they did was giving the biggest part of the Kurdish inhabited area to Turkey, which you can see as red in the map. This is the Turkish part, occupied part. Then giving second biggest part to Iran, because Iran also descendants of the Persian Empire. They have to be also controlled through the Kurdish card. And the third part, the green part, we will give to Iraq, and to satisfy the Arabs. And the other yellow part is the Rojava, the Western Kurdish part, we give to Syria. So in these 100 years, we the Kurds, Arabs, Turks, Persians, we have fought each other. We paid high prices. particularly we as Kurds, because we never give up our freedom. We never accepted the colonialization by these 4 key states. In the 100 years, we had 28 big uprisings. But all of them, however, we fought heroically, we failed. Because we couldn't get the high tech in military, and still we haven't been well organized. National unity amongst the Kurds was a problem, and internal conflicts has been deepened by the colonial states and also the Europeans. So it was impossible to bring Kurds together. And this made the Kurdish card a very cheap card as a tool to provocate others or to deepening the problems. So Kurdish problem means ancient people of the region, and we are one of the ancient people. The Kurds contributed a lot to the Fertile Crescent in the Mesopotamia, next to the Assyrians and Armenians. These people have been declared as non-existent. In none of the constitution of the founded nation states of Turkey, Iran, Iraq, Syria, the word Kurdish is mentioned. The Turkish article, the constitution article 2 is saying, the people who lives in Turkey are Turkish. Article 8 is saying that the only language in this country is Turkish. So, and Article 28 is saying just the Latin alphabet with 28 letters are acceptable. The others are forbidden. So the Kurdish one has 31 letters. So this is the form of denying existence of a people. What did we do in the last 100 years? We fought. However, we never gained, we never succeeded the struggles during the 28 uprisings, but we never give up our freedom. We challenged these people. And then when the Soviet Union collapsed, I must add something, if there are some friends of yours from Marxist movements, Lenin was also supporting the Turks against us. Because he did believe at that time that Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, the founder of Turkey, is anti-British, and Lenin was anti-British, so-called anti-imperialistic, so he kept blind eye when the Turks killed us. However, the Kurdish tribal leaders have been written several letters to Lenin saying, listen, you must help us. But nothing happened. So this is bad experience. It was continued also today by Putin, the Russian president today. So there's a tradition of Russia not to stand for the Kurds, even during the time of Soviet Union, which was the hope of oppressed people, but not the Kurdish one. So in the 28 uprisings, we came to the 9 years, the turmoil of the system change, and this gave Kurds some opportunities. Because the global players had problems with the current regimes which have been built by British, there was a need of a transition to neoliberalism. So that's why they start to withdraw Saddam as one of the very centralistic states and dictator, and said then, well, who can be, and the Kurds helped us in this process because Saddam killed in one day 5,000 Kurds through chemical weapons in Halabja on the 16th of March 1988. Still 192,000 people are missing during the processes of Anfal. Anfal is the description in the Holy Quran, means elimination of the enemy. So, and these enemies have been children, women, innocent people. 192,000 people are still missing, disappeared by Saddam's special forces. So you must understand why the Kurds have been against Saddam. You might be anti-imperialistic or anti-US, but try to understand from our perspective, to look from a different perspective. We needed a chance to survive physically in Iraq. So that's why the turmoil in Middle East offers the Kurds opportunity to build up Kurdish autonomy in northern Iraq, which has a constitutional recognition today. So then the second term of turmoil came in 2011 to Syria after the Arab Spring 2010. And this time we said there's opportunity without Americans. And this particular part of Kurdistan is different than the Iraqi part, because in this, the Kurds have gained 20 years hospitality from the Syrian regime, when the Kurdish People's leader Abdullah Öcalan spent 20 years in Damascus. So Abdullah Öcalan needed space to reorganize a new modern Kurdish movement. After the 28 failed rebellions, he built the 29th one in 1978. Because there was no opportunity to organize in Turkey, he came to Syria. Why Syria? Because Syria has historical problems with Turkey. So it became a symbiotic relation. Keeping Öcalan in Damascus strengthened the regime's hand against Turkey, but offered Abdullah Öcalan opportunity to build academies in Damascus, teaching 40,000 fighters in Damascus, in Aleppo, and other parts of Syria, and also organizing the 3 million Kurds in Syria. So this part of Kurdistan is different than Iraqi one. So 20 years political education, organizing, learning administration structures strengthened the Kurds in Syria. When the time came to 2011, the turmoil in Syria, what the Kurds did was, now we take over. There was a political vacuum. The regime was not able to defend this area against the mercenaries of the so-called Islamic State. So at that time, the Kurds said to the regime, listen, we both are challenged. So if you don't attack us, we won't attack you. So we have an opportunity to also attack the regime. But then it will create further problems. That was a smart way was, we solved the problem through dialogue with the regime, with the Syrian regime, because the Kurds in Syria, as well as the Kurds in Turkey, Iran, and Iraq, they say we are part of these countries. We are not going to make any changes in the borders. Changing the borders are not the guarantee for freedom, as we have seen in different parts of the world. So what was the challenge comparing in Iraq was that a new army came up, a new tool, the so-called mercenaries of Islamic State. And these are called the proxy war instruments. In this war is you don't use your conventional army, because you have firstly you want to empty the region by scaring the people. So you use the methods of terrorism. Terrorism is from Latin, means scaring. What they did was recruiting jihadists from everywhere, some splitting groups from Al-Qaeda, some for Ahrar al-Sham. I don't know, there are now 52 groups of them. And they could slaughter people, kill them, raping women, kidnapping women, and nobody could bring them to the international court for war crimes. Because you don't have the address, you don't know who's the leader, so a very conspirative organization. Well, from Mosul, they infiltrated Rojava to build the caliphate, the new Islamic State, and brought thousands of people from Uyghurs from China, Algerians, Tunisians. Yeah, thank you. From here? Yeah. So the first group infiltrated from Mosul to here, but the main groups came from Istanbul to here. After hours, defeated the group here, the first one from Mosul to Syria. This part about Kurdistan. After the fighters, our fighters in Rojava and this yellow part of Kurdistan, they defeated the terrorists of Islamic State. Then Turkey started to send others from, they came from Europe, from India, from Pakistan, from Malaysia, from Indonesia, from China, from 52 states. They got travel documents from the Turkish regime, they got money, and from Istanbul here, they brought by plane to Antep. It's a Kurdish area, but in the Turkish territory. And they could pass this border gate, infiltrating from this part. But they didn't expect that our fighters have been prepared. As I told you, Öcalan was spending 20 years here in Syria and teaching the majority of the Kurds here. These are high-level politicized people. They know geostrategic changes. I would say all the people are following Öcalan. I like this. And since they have been prepared so far ideologically, politically, and also militarily, they have been able to defeat ISIS in 4 years' time. The last battle was in 2017 in the Arab region, Deir Zur here. And we liberated also this area of, these are Arabic areas, but also occupied by the Islamic State, and they have been also threatening the Arab tribes. We defeated all this area. So now, this is the Kurdish inhabited part of Syria, but here, from here to here, we built a common administration with all other ethnic groups. The autonomous administration of North and East Syria. So it includes the Arabs, the Christians, the Chechens, and the Turkomans. These are all people sharing with us for centuries the common land. So when we took over in 2012 this region from the regime, the question was, what should we do with the Arabs? Because the Arabs are not the people, ancient people of our region. They came from Saudi Arabia, from other parts. So what should we do? Should we say them, you go back to your ancestors, to the land of your ancestors, or we make it different? We make a difference and say, you are our neighbors, we will exist together. So and we decided for the second alternative. Because what we have seen in Libya, in Egypt, in other parts, in Iraq, when external forces are intervening, they will deepening the conflicts, using the peoples against each other. We said we have to learn from the history and from our neighboring countries, so we bring the people together. So, and now we have if we couldn't bring the people together, this part of Kurdistan wouldn't be able to survive. Not the Arabs, neither the Kurds, nor the Christians, none of them could survive. So coming together gave us all strength. But coming together is not enough. Implementing a common administration model is also not enough. You need some principles. Principles of unity. The first one is the golden pillar of the system, respect of women. The women's freedom movement is the key for social transition in all societies. Including the Kurdish society, we have strong elements of patriarchy. Also, the Orthodox Christians of Syria, they are also patriarchal. And also the Arabic tribes, and also the Turkomans and the Chechens. So we defend, in self-defense, acting together is okay, but we need to create political ideas, democratic ideas. We want to survive together. We want to be deepening our dialogue. But this revolution is not a man revolution. We can't accuse Islamic State and others saying they are dictators or terrorists. What about the men? So they have to change. So what we said, we need democracy, all of us. And democracy, the turning point of democracy is respecting autonomous participation of women everywhere. In Kurdistan, we had this experience 30 years already, but this became a criteria of mutual relations, of bilateral relations with other ethnic groups. So you see, saying, oh, people be united, okay, but what about, how unification, on which principles? It can't be just that we unify ourselves through just self-defense, because we want to create a model, a system we need also cultural exchanges. How can we act together if one part of the components is oppressing women? Where is then our democratic understanding? So that's why we said, okay, when we are sitting on a table, writing the fate, our future, so on this table there must be also women. The Arabs can't say, well, we are Muslims, no women, or the Christian Orthodox, no, we have the patriarch, no. So the Kurdish women's movement insisted, put pressure on other ethnic groups, you bring women to the table. To the table where the decisions are being done. So, and this is the strength of this part, this model in northern Syria. It's very small when you compare this part with other parts of Kurdistan. But this model here can be exported or implemented other parts of Middle East, because we have everywhere different faiths, different classes, different ethnic groups. Even the Kurdish society is not homogeneous. We have amongst the Kurds 8 different faiths. We have different class structures. But learning to, like you in India used to say, unity and diversity, we try to implement this with a new model which is called democratic confederalism. And democratic confederalism means that each member of a society has the right for self-organizing, whether according to the interest being a professional group, ethnic group, religious group, gender group, whatever is your interest. A collective must have the right to be autonomous for self-determination. And this model is grassroots-based model. What we have also, of course, state structures. We took over part of the state of Syria, but we created also the alternative to the state, because we believe the source of every problem, what we are telling today, whatever nationalism, sexism, religiousness, are based on power mentality, hegemonial mentality, which are centralized in structures of state. It can be a political party, it can be a religious group, whatever. So what we are looking for, decentralization everywhere. Instead of central structure, coordination bodies for exchange of information, experiences. We rejected to build up very hierarchical central structures in North and East Syria. Right at the beginning, 2012, there have been 7 hierarchies, but now we reduce it to 4. The aim is to reduce it to 2. Under war circumstances. All this is happening under war circumstances. So democratic confederalism means a democracy without state. Because we see the state as a source of all problems. When it's come to the interest of the state, it can destroy also the environment of its own country. It can use the components of the city, of the country. So that's why the people should be able to care for their own. But not like in the older revolution, so we take the arms and we attack the regime or the government. No, you can take care on your own, so there's no need to knock at the door of any of the state building structures. There's no need for establishment. You create your own needs, why not? Take care on your own needs. This is possible and can be done everywhere. So that's why the theory of Öcalan is saying coexistence between state and non-state actors, means civil society and state. So he describe the civil society as area of democracy, the state of the area of power. And both can exist together in mutual respect. Means when the state doesn't attack you, there's no need to attack the state like we did in Syria. So the new Kurdish idea which we implemented here is now hope for all Kurdish parts. We say freedom is possible through democratic confederalism in the current existing borders. So let's say this is Kurdish area in Turkey, the biggest part. When the Kurdish city Erzurum, the villages around Erzurum, or the Kars, or Van, if they are able to organize through people's councils, women's council, youth council, groups of professions, whatever, cooperatives, because you need also bread when you make revolution. So there's no need for you in Diyarbakir to knock at the door of the governor, which is the state of Turkey. You organized your people of founding a cooperative of bakery. And by this, you make the Turkish authority in Kurdistan useless if you create your own alternatives. This is freedom. Being able to decide what to do for tomorrow. And the same we are suggesting to Iran, and Iran is also a multi-ethnic country, next to the Kurds as the second population after the Persians. There are Baluch, there are Ahwas, there are Manzarin, there are several other ethnic groups and many, many religious groups. So the same we started here in Iranian part of Kurdistan, and as you followed up last year when the uprising started with the killing of the Kurdish woman Jina Amini, now the revolution starts in Kurdish area, spreading to all Iran. The slogan of the revolution is Jin Jiyan Azadi, Women, Freedom, Life, is the philosophy of the Kurdish women's movement, which started in the 90s. So, and accordingly to this slogan, now the Kurds firstly and then other ethnic groups have been supportive to the Kurds against the Iranian regime, asking for more civil liberties. So in Europe, the whole struggle of the people in Iran was reduced on headscarf or cutting hair. This is not the aim of the revolution there. You cut your hair, you carry headscarf as your personal decision. This is not the aim. It's not the issue of revolution. The problem of the revolution is to remove power-based structures which describe the people how to live 24 hours. This is our problem. Removing the patriarchalism of the Iranian regime for all the components in Iran, and the revolution is continuing. What we say to Iran, you can't stop this revolution, this silent revolution, you have to change, because Iran has also other problems. So this is an opportunity also for the people, since US is pressuring Iran, Israel is pressuring European countries, etc., etc. I must be clear, we are not interested in external intervention in any of the countries. So you would ask, why do you keep then the US here? This is the main question and the critics on us by the left. We haven't invited the US to there. The US have been busy with Afghanistan, busy in Damascus, how to withdraw the regime. We were busy protecting our country from the Islamic State backed by Turkey. And then when we defeated them in January 2015, in the last battle in Kobani, here is Kobani, here, then the Americans came. We already defeated the Islamic mercenaries. Then they came why they came? Because the American image in Middle East is terribly bad. Nobody liked the Americans in Middle East. The people, whatever Kurds or whatever, say, because these are people from foreign countries and represented by militaries, not by civilians. I'm talking about the American military, not the people. So, and they then come took pictures with our heroic fighters, because the world was applauding for our fighters. And the Americans need to get new image. And they gained the image through us. So it was a symbiotic interest. Why we kept eye when the Americans came? Wouldn't they be here? Here. Turkey would eliminate us in 1 week's time. So let's say choosing the good from bad. There was no other alternative. And then saying we shouldn't depend on the US because for their interest in the region. Then the Russians asked, can we come? We said, yes, you come. Then France knocked at our door, said, can we come? We said, yes, come. So we brought the multipolarism, multipolar politics to this small part of Kurdistan. Here. All member states of the international coalition for defeating Islamic State are now there. When they will get out, when the regime gaining strength, and when the regime is cooperating with us, then the regime will apply in the UN that all the foreign forces should leave Syria, and then it's possible. Unless the regime is able to recognize us, to see that there's a change in northern Syria, there's a democratic future, Syria is here. We wouldn't accept this part of Syria, which is under the control of regime, because it's not democratic. So the regime has to learn in coexistence with democracy by by a transition process to federalism in Syria. Not just for us, for the Durzis, for the Arabic tribes, because there are Sunni Arabs, Alawi Arabs in Iraq, for the Chechens, for the Turkomans, and for the Christians. So there's a need in new structuring the state model. The same we're asking in Turkey. We say the Turkish Republic has to be renewed. There's a need of the federalism in Turkey. And federalism in each of the states would mean also on the Black Sea area, there are non-Turkish, historically this is not Turkish area, morely Christian area, but assimilated to Turks. And then there are different cultures and traditions at the Mediterranean Sea in Turkey. So all these cultures need a free space for self-organizing. That's why we say Turkey must become a model like in India, for example, provinces. But having provinces is not enough. What you need is to focus on the grassroots. Having written the things in the constitution are not enough. Revolution must be done on the grassroots. Changing of consciousness, changing of mindset is either main dynamic for transition, not writing some article somewhere. That's why we believe democracy has to be implemented in the grassroots, not above. And for this, women's struggle is very vital. The key issue of overcoming any kind of centralism, hegemony, power, based on patriarchy, which has a history of 5,000, 7,000 years. We have now in Kurdistan 50% gender quote everywhere, in political parties, in arts, in economy, wherever you look, and we have the system of co-chair. Every political party has double chairs, men and women. But it's not because of equality. So we don't accept the European feminism's understanding of equality. We don't ask the men to have the same rights. Because in our culture, the man has the right to kill, to do everything what they want. We want to make it better as women. So we say the man as a chair is also always, we have to be careful, he can represent power. The woman as democracy has to observe the female co-chair. So she is a symbol of democracy. Her duty and job is to control power, to weaken power, transitioning the man to democracy, bringing him down. Not that one day he will feel a king or a prince. So this is the duty of the female co-chair. So from the top until the ground, from the ground to above, everywhere we have this system. Now we are implementing this also in the Arab areas, amongst the Christians. And I would say after so long time of our history, for the first time, all of our people tasted freedom. So freedom is possible. So the problem is, how do we describe ourselves? Are we the objectives of transition or the subjects? And we had the good luck to have a leader, thinker, ideologue like Abdullah Öcalan, who was abducted 24 years ago by the US and Israel and given to Turkey on the 15th of February 1999, because he was the man who changed the Kurds, made it possible that Kurds rethink not to copy the former national liberation movements, like the one in Angola, Mozambique, South Africa, elsewhere. We said we have to learn from all the experiences worldwide and make it different, because we are the continuation of finding new alternative for humanity in our area, firstly for us and with our neighbors together. So, and thanks to his ideas, his analysis, we could achieve to survive in this very burning area, part of the world. And as I said, in 1 week's time, we will bring 1,000 Kurdish politicians, civil activists, academic artists, members of political parties, different faiths of Kurdistan together, and showing the Europeans, you couldn't finish us through your Lausanne Treaty. We exist and we are united. So it's time to change and recognize us. So that's from my side. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Nilüfer. It was absolutely, I mean, you learned so much just listening to you. But I do have a question in the sense you are, your state, Rojava, so to speak, is a part of Syria. I mean, it's in the northern part of Syria, and you have the part of Iraq, which is Arbil and Kirkuk. How do you fund, how do these enclaves fund themselves? Do you have access to oil, or is it funding from abroad? How do these states run?
Well, when we get the opportunity for autonomy in Iraqi Kurdistan, our brothers and sisters in Iraqi Kurdistan made a failure by concentrating the economy on oil trade. We said unless we don't have political guarantees, we shouldn't concentrate on oil. Instead, helping the people founding cooperatives for the first time. So we learned from Iraq and we haven't repeated the mistake in Syria. So we have now over 75% of Syrian oil and gas under the control. But we don't sell oil because we are surrounded and all the border gates are closed.
I see.
So what we did was helping the people to find cooperatives. Because the very fertile part of Syria is Kurdistan, because we have water, which Syria doesn't have. So we have both rivers, Euphrates and Tigris, which is offering water, bringing water to Iraq and Syria. So it's very fertile land. That's why we created everywhere cooperative in agriculture, so that the people shouldn't be dependent on anywhere.
So it is a self-sustaining economy.
Yes.
It doesn't need an oil-rich economy.
No.
Is it a point of contention with with Damascus, with the Ba'athist regime, and with the? Is it acceptable to the Iraqis also that you don't sell their oil from Kirkuk and so on?
You know, oil in Kirkuk, in Iraqi Kurdistan, is a problem now. Turkey was cutting water over the.
I was going to ask you about
yes,
that.
the Euphrates was cut in the springtime. You know, Turkey has built several dams on both rivers, which are springing from Turkish part of Kurdistan, and they have been threatening Iraq by cutting the water, and Iraq was then stopping the oil, cut the pipelines of oil to Turkey. So there's trouble now. That's why I said you shouldn't focus on oil. It's not guaranteed unless you don't have political stability.
So what is your relationship with the United States? What does Kurdistan get from the United States? Does it get moral support, or is it? I mean, it looks as if the recent the Vilnius summit, the NATO summit, Turkey was given Turkey was promised an F-16 Armada to what are they going to do with it? I mean, they've already bombed your enclave. They've blocked Rojava. Is Turkey the biggest worry now? The fact that they're getting armed to, sort of, I suppose, take over your enclave.
Well, Erdogan has, since the fall of Saddam and then the collapse of the Syrian regime, the dream to create new Ottoman Empire, and annexing the yellow and green parts of Kurdistan, which I was showing in the map, saying these are former territories of Ottoman Empire, I want to get them back. So, but the obstacle are we say no, this is our land, we don't allow you to occupy. So that's why he was using the Islamic mercenaries. So, and it seems that Erdogan can just keep his power unless he weaken the Kurds. So the Kurds have becoming bargaining also in his diplomacy. When he was threatening Sweden, just because he was saying to Sweden, don't support the Kurds.
Yes.
because Sweden was very very keen to the YPG and YPJ, our armies in Syria. So in one of the article of the agreement, Sweden promised Turkey they will stop the support. The question is, we exist before the Swedish state and US. US has history of 200 years, we thousands of years, so we don't depend on the US. We learn to survive in the region without the US. So I would say they're benefiting from us, not the opposite. They are global player, not us. So, and they're also looking for some opportunities, and the moment brought us and them together. There are some moments in history which brought us together somehow. So I would say now there's a symbiotic relation. I don't know for how long, because the US is changing always their policy, so we have to be very careful. Well, there are 50 million Kurds generally. We have 2 million Kurds in Europe, in the diaspora, 1.5 million just in Germany. And we have a lot of Kurdish capitalists in Canada, in Australia. I don't know if we have in India, but in other parts I know. We have 2 million Kurds in the former Soviet Union, and these are people who are following every day what's going on in their country. So they are voluntarily supporting the struggle. And in Middle East, it's easy to buy arms. I have seen it by my own when I was 2013 in Erbil. Behind the big mosque, there was a market. You could go and buy Kalashnikov, everything, what you needed.
Wow. No, but
So
ISIL
easy.
is, as you mentioned very vividly.
I mean, I haven't bought, so no. To be clear.
ISIL is a threat to your people. What can you really do to counter that? I mean, and is it? I mean, I was looking at the map. It's all contiguous. You have northern Syria, Turkey, parts of Turkey, and Iraq. They're all contiguous, and Iran. Would you look at a possibility of one day having a Kurdistan which included all those areas as one country? Will that ever happen?
No, we are right on the way. I mean, the idea is not creating Kurdish nation state, because it will cause a big challenge. But I will make it very simple. You make the borders of Lausanne useless. How? If you have here similar system like here, and the same system here, and here, then you have democratic confederalism without touching the borders. With the help of Twitter, of Facebook, all the telecommunication, digital media, you can communicate. So we have nearly 70 TV channels. So the Kurds here, and they know what's happening here, how the Kurds are living here, through TV channels, and the people can move. So there's no need to change the border. That will need a new war. Yeah. So that's why we say having here autonomy of North, Turkey, autonomy of West, autonomy of East, South, autonomy of East. These four autonomies automatically ensure your confederalism of Kurdistan without touching the borders. This is possible, and that's what we're experimenting now.
You know, you talked about the abduction of Abdullah Öcalan, which was a huge story when it happened. You know, and what was the need to remove him as a leader of the Kurds, and who has succeeded him? Do you have one leader like you did with the Masoud Barzani, and as you said, the Barzani clan now runs the whole thing. Is there one person? Is there a woman that you can expect to lead the Kurds one day? Be the face of the Kurdish people?
The absolute majority of the Kurds are standing for Abdullah Öcalan because his ideas have helped the Kurds to survive.
Who persuaded him to leave Damascus, the safety of Damascus?
Well, it was the US. And actually, it was Bill Clinton and Netanyahu, Benjamin Netanyahu at that time. They said to the Syrian regime, whatever, you kick out Turkey, Abdullah Öcalan out from Syria, or we will attack Syria, because they say Öcalan is weakening our NATO partner, Turkey. Oh. So, and at that time, the Öcalan then said, I'm not going to be the reason that the US and Israel are attacking Syria, I will leave. So Hafez al-Assad, the president of that day, he said, you can't stay, I will face a war, but he said, no, thank you for your 20 years hospitality, but I will leave your country. And he decided to go to Europe, because he said the Europeans created the Kurdish problem, so I will solve the Kurdish problem with the Europeans, who are the creators of the problem. What was happening was that the Europeans haven't given him the right to become a refugee. The Greek government was mediating, and they promised Öcalan that he would become asylum in South Africa, which he accepted. And some of my friends have been in South Africa speaking with Mandela, and he accepted to offer hospitality to Öcalan. But on his way to, supposed to go to South Africa, they brought him to Kenya, to Nairobi. And from there, Mossad and CIA, they together abducted him and overhanded him to Turkey. And since then, he is on a prison island, which is called İmralı, and since 24 years in solidarity confinement. He is being punished because of the freedom of the Kurdish people. He is punished on behalf of us. He helped us to change ourselves. We helped him to deepen and furthering his theory and strategy. So there's a symbiotic relation between us and Öcalan, particularly between women and him, because he was the only one who was always on the side of women, against his party, against his comrades, against the whole world, say women make the change. I believe that women will make the change. And he's the one who gave a measure for the Kurdish society, said, without free women, a society can't be free. Just with free women, the society can say, I am free. So the key are the women in Öcalan's theory.
So who's next?
Well, it's still him. So that's why the fight in the last 24 years is to liberate him, release him. In the meantime, the US, Britain has prepared another leader for the Kurds, as Barzani. They say, this man is good to you. Well, we said, no, thank you, we have one, give him to us. Because the other one, I mean, they fought. They played a very important role in Kurdish history. So I can't deny this. However, I'm not on his side, but I have to be objective. Thousands of Peshmergas lost their life in fight against Saddam. But unfortunately, after we got autonomy, corruption starts. And just one family is ruling part of the country. We say, why? Why a family must rule? Why no democratic elections? And then we reject Sharia law. And Iraqi Kurdistan has a Sharia law, because the Barzani family is Islamic, very Islamic. And we say, well, in Iraqi Kurdistan, there are Yazidi, descendants of Zoroastrians. There are Alawite Kurds in Kirkuk. And there are other forms of Islam. Why just one single Islam? Why do you reduce taxes when people are building mosques? So this is a part of Kurdistan from the old century.
In fact, that's quite fascinating. The fact that the people of Kurdistan, I mean, not only are they across 4 nations, they also are from various religions. They speak so many languages. What is it that unites you? I mean, you have the Ahle Hadik, you have the Alawites, you have so many different religions and languages. The Yezdis, they're fascinating as well. Maybe you should tell them about the Yezdis.
We have 8 faiths in Kurdistan. Majority of the Kurds are Muslims, but Shafi Islam, not Shafi school of Islam. The Turks are Hanafi school of Sunni Islam. Hanafi Islam is considering the state as the main power. Shafis are in opposition to this. So most of the Muslims in India are also Hanafis. Those in Pakistan, in Kashmir, in Bangladesh, Malaysia also Hanafi. This Hanafi was the religion of the Ottoman Empire, and is the current school of Islam in Turkey amongst its establishment. So the Kurds have been in opposition to them, Shafi Islam, tolerating the state but don't listen too much to the state. So they are quite secular in this. The Yazidis are descendants of the Zoroastrians. I think you have also in India Zoroastrianism. Farsis, yeah. And we say they are the core of the Kurds. So, because the Kurds have been converting to Islam 1,200 years ago by force. And why the Kurds don't give up freedom is because we lived very long period of our history with the nature, in a very, I would say, we had an ecological understanding as a part of the whole environment, nature, not over the nature. So because Kurds are coming from matrilinear societal structures. So during the time of Neolithic revolution, domesticization of animals, settling of humans, etc., women have been putting the criteria of the society. And we still have in rural areas, in the high mountainous areas, very strong matrilinear societal elements in which women are leading. And not leading, but showing the way. So, and Yazidis have been those who have been conserving this tradition, and also the Alawite Kurds, also opposition to Islam. Islam means Arabization of the region at that time, but now it's a part of cultural life of the Kurds, but the Kurds comparing with us, others are very secular.
But hasn't Turkey also
collapsing
populated
economically.
your area? They've populated your area with Syrians, I believe.
They have occupied few of our
Yeah.
areas, yeah. Some are very strategic locations. We are still trying to get them back. But I think Turkey can't continue with Erdogan anymore because it's collapsing economically. In diplomacy, you have seen in the recent summit of NATO, all the states saying he's not a reliable partner. You can't trust him. He's one day so, the next day so. And then the other problem with Erdogan is, since he's dreaming becoming the new caliph of the Ottoman Empire, the new Ottomanism, he's intervening everywhere where the Muslims are, creating internal problems in different countries, in Pakistan, in Libya, in Iraq, in India, everywhere. So I would say, indeed, the Turkish regime is not just a problem to us. And the man has more 10,000 of recruited mercenaries. That's make him dangerous. And then we have now 70,000 arrested of them after we defeated their war. We defeated them in 2017, the last time. And Erdogan's special forces are trying to release them every time. They're infiltrating in these camps and trying to...
the new Saddam.
Yes, Saddam had some logic, but this man, I don't know what's going on. So, I mean, I studied Saddam. He is really saying, I will be the new Atatürk. He says, Atatürk sold my country to the Europeans 400 years ago. I will get them back. I will become the biggest Atatürk in Turkish history. And that can only happen when he defeats us. And we say no. So he is collapsing, not us. Look, we don't have a state, but Syria was a state, is collapsing. Iraq was a state, gone. Libya was a powerful welfare state, gone. Sudan, Somalia, look what's happening. And look what is India doing in the global turbulences. The states are challenged badly, and the only who could survive in the region are we.
That's very
as a non-state actors, because we brought people together. So that's why I say state is not a guarantee for survive. When we have democratic understanding, democratic organization with ethnicity, different diversity, it's possible. And you see, revolution is quite possible.
Fascinating. So should we throw this open to the audience for questions?
But has there not been any attempt to suppress the culture in any of these four states? And have they been successful?
Yes, our language is now threatening. Some of the dialects, particularly the main spoken dialect Kurmanji in Turkey, is threatened now because all of our institutions we built up, they have been shut down by Turkish regime. So we are trying now through the institution we build it in Europe to improve the language. But the language has to be spoken by people. And this is in Kurdistan. So it's still problematic to speak this language in Turkey. Culturally is the same. Well, we have different traditional clothes comparing with the Turks, and we have different customs. So these are all some very threatened now. Because of unemployment, there's no industry in the Kurdish areas, so the Kurds are forced to go to the Turkish areas. Let's say to Istanbul, the biggest cities, and there they are, it's easy to assimilate them, to force them to become Turks. Because if you don't speak Turkish, if you don't behave like a Turk, you wouldn't be able to find job, and you wouldn't find any job in the state structures. So you must accept to be that you are Turk. Then you have the right to survive, and for this you have to speak better Turkish than a Turk, being better Pope than the Pope himself.
I have an anecdote actually. The first Kurdish gentleman I ever interviewed was the Turkish envoy to the UAE in 1986. And I had no idea he was a Kurd. He was an artist, so he was having an exhibition, and he had these beautiful paintings of the Bosphorus and the Dubai Creek and everything. And I think he sort of trusted me by the end of the interview, and then he told me about the Kurdish problem. And he took me into his room, and under his bed were these piles of papers and documents that he had collected about the Kurdish movement, which of course he swore me to secrecy. So the Turkization of the Kurdish, I think, applies not just to Turkey. It apparently has happened in Iran as well, and in Syria, and in Iraq.
In Syria, not. In Syria, we have now our own schools.
You had a foreign minister who was a Kurd, if I remember.
No, Erdogan has now 4 Kurds next to him and showing the world, listen, I don't have a problem with the Kurds, but with the terrorists. So terrorists are people like me. So whoever is against Erdogan, not just us, all those, even those who has nothing to do with Kurds, when they say something wrong about Erdogan, they will be landing in the prison and become the title terrorists. It's a cheap title today. Wherever you open your mouth, you are terrorist. But we could take one of his argument, which he can't use anymore. In the past, he said these are separatists. So they want to divide my holy country. We say no. We can solve the problem in the current existing border, but you want to change the borders, not us. You are intervening in Iraq and Syria, not us. So now we say you are the separatists, not us. You're dividing other countries. And then when he was using terrorism, the High Court in Belgium decided 3 years ago that the PKK is not a terrorist organization, but armed liberation movement. And then the question is, who is the terrorist in this war? Is the one who is using chemicals is Turkish army. The one who is using armed drones, killing civilians and politicians by armed drones is Turkish state. The one who is arresting people because they're just writing something against Erdogan, imprisoning them is Erdogan, not us. And still we are missing 2,000 Kurdish women, Kurdish Yazidi women who have been kidnapped 2014 through Erdogan's proxy elements, the Islamic mercenaries. Rape of thousands of Kurdish women. Kurdish Yazidi women, still they're missing. And then because they've been sold on the slave markets to Arab countries, I don't know to where else. We're still searching for this woman who did Erdogan. So if you want to know who's terrorist, I would say show the address of Ankara. It's centralized in Ankara terrorism. So he can't use this argument anymore. So it's not easy today, after we have also the court decision from the High Court from Belgium.
Questions, anyone?
I have a small one to add. Syria and Turkey were hit with a terrible earthquake earlier this year, and I think these parts were also affected. So how did that affect the democratic process, and what's the reconstruction like there?
I didn't get the question.
It was about earthquake. There was an earthquake in that region.
Yeah.
Did that affect anything in terms of the relationship and rebuilding of those areas?
Well, the both areas was Gaziantep and Şanlıurfa. These are the Turkish names of Kurdish areas, which is, one is Şanlıurfa's Raha in Kurdish, And Gaziantep, you see there is Dilok in Kurdish. So these are the Turkish names. These are Kurdish areas. So all the aid which have been sent has gone to the Turkish Red Moon, not to the people, just to those who have been supporters of Erdogan. That's why we call the word not to send money to the Turkish state structures. So during the elections, Erdogan has given them money, made some promises, but still the people are living in tents. The situation hasn't changed for them. So it's terrible now. So particularly now in hot summertime.
Hi, my name is Kishore. For those of us who are living in India but cannot afford to visit Syria, are there any organizations or individuals who have been consistently offering solidarity or support to the Kurdish movement that we can get in touch with?
I think Leo and Bargavi. Currently. I hope the next time we will be able to create something together.
Okay.
And starting in Bangalore.
Okay.
Yeah. We have also friends in Delhi and in other parts in India, and I think it's right time then the next time to create something new. But Leo is half Kurdish already.
Yeah, I
so.
know. I've already got a passport, and I can walk in anytime. Some of us have been working with them and supporting them for almost a decade plus more. And in some ways, I think we are actually identifying ourselves as the kinds of people in the past who have supported the Palestinians, the anti-apartheid movement, and so on. So the Kurdish people are suffering no less, in fact, intensely more. And there have been many progressive movements in India which have highlighted this. Last time she came, I actually took her to meet then Prime Minister, Prime Minister Devegowda, who had retired at that time, of course. But he had a long chat with them. And he had great memories of the geography and the extraordinary clarity with which he understood their issues. So there is a lot of deep understanding of their situation in some political people, not all. For instance, I wish it was much more deeper in every region, because if you can identify what they are going through, we can also value our freedom more. But also importantly, I think we can understand what could happen if we do not follow some of the wonderful writings of Abdullah Öcalan, for instance. So one of the parts of this response is not just to uphold human rights, but also to appreciate the fact that the role of women was not necessarily a ritualistic role here. If you read the book Revolution in Rojava, it explains how the role of women was conditional in a way that it brought respect, dignity, which is natural to being a woman, not as a, giving something, like, giving back. So to reclaim that kind of lost identity is, I think, critical to their movement. And I think we need to learn a lot, and there's a lot of progressive groups across the country, writers, literary figures, theater people, academics, who are following this movement. But I wish it also could become a political consciousness to realize that this network, it could be journalists. So there is not much writing, unfortunately, because I think we are too insular as a country. We are not even bothered about what's happening in Manipur nowadays or Sri Lanka. So these are serious problems for India. And I think we have to realize that we have a much larger role as global citizens, which, it's not just the money flow and the tech flow that we are interested in, that we're also interested in environment, human rights. So the Rojava revolution is actually towards a socio-ecological revolution. And there's much to learn from that. And so we welcome anyone who is interested, keep in touch. And when they come next, I think we can have much larger networks, meetings, Get Mr. Sidramaya here to meet them perhaps. He's our chief minister. And he's a very progressive chief minister, he says. Yeah, like that. Yeah.
I'd like to thank you for a wonderful talk, and also especially for what you have thrown light on, which is this concept of democratic confederalism, which I think is really useful. And I'm just wondering if there are people who are writing about it, because it is a model that can actually bring peace to many parts of the world, including India, where we are also pretty much under attack from a larger state, a strong state. That is one. And the second thing is how you have managed to position the role of women in the movement as center staging them and forefronting the movement, which is again a very unique part of nationalist movements that I have heard of, where it's never the women, in the front. So these are two very unique aspects, which I think if there's more known and there's more written, I think we can all benefit from it. That's just a comment.
I don't think that the Kurds are more smart than other ethnic groups in Middle East regarding the women. I think the only exception or the only person who was different to women is Abdullah Öcalan. So that's made us different. And we made Öcalan different. So it was right in the 90s when the Soviet Union collapsed. He was questioning what was the reason why socialism collapsed, real socialism. In this time, in the 90s, is the time where hundreds of women are participating in Öcalan's freedom movement. Thousands are becoming guerrilla fighters in the mountains and are challenged by men, by commanders, revolutionaries. The women expected they would have freedom in the mountains in the PKK, but it was not like that as they wished. So the gender conflict starts in the PKK. The only one who was very sensitive to this problem was Öcalan. Women have been writing reports to him saying, hey, we came here to become free, so we are continuing with our role in our houses we left. And Öcalan was, in this particular time, on his way to search for the collapse of socialism. And the women were alarming him, saying, hey, we are the proletariat you are looking for. Radical revolution, we are the key to this, not the proletariat of Lenin and Marx. So, and we helped him to find what he was looking for, and he helped us to find what we are looking for. So that's why this is a specific part of this history, is Öcalan. So, and this is the reason why these great women could defeat the Islamic State commanders. And these commanders have been very smart people. Not the fighters, the brainwashed, but the fighters are good in tactics and strategies. But also the women. Because the Kurdish women movement grew up in the experience of the struggles of the women worldwide, but also coming to the Kurdish women's history starting from Neolithic until today. So knowing our history gave us our strength, and also the history of women everywhere in the world. So with the help of Öcalan, we helped him, he helped us, and today together we made an extraordinary revolution in the 21st century.
That's fabulous. Very proud.
Hello, I hope I'm audible to both of you. Hello, can you? Yeah, got it. Am I audible now? Yeah. A lovely session. Thank you so much for it. I have 2-3 questions, if that's fine with, and it's open to both of you. So what I understand from democratic confederalism is that it's people coming together out of their own will, where they're not bound by any state territories and boundaries. They exist out of their own will under the label of Kurdistan. However, there are 3 places that you can see here, the yellow one, the green one, and the red one, occupied by different states. If there's conflict between these 3 groups, will that be detrimental to democratic confederalism? Because then people are not coming together. They might have their own internal issues as well, because it's made up of Christians, it's made up of Zoroastrians, it's made up of Muslims. So will there be any conflict between these 3? which will affect democratic confederalism? That's the first one, so if you could.
There are thousands of conflicts already now.
I'm speaking internally.
Yes,
when-
there are conflicts
yeah.
amongst the Kurds, since the Kurds are not homogeneous. Also, in the very small part of Kurdistan, the yellow part,
Yeah.
Rojava, 2 million Kurds, but they are in conflict with each other. But it is natural. The revolutionary way is help them to overcome problems non-violent through talking. And you know, we have for every single field of problems academies. I don't think we have so many academies in Bangalore like we do have in a small part of Kurdistan. For traffic police. And you know, we had the trouble with traffic police. I was there when they established the traffic police 2012, beginning 2013. I was invited to the academy for traffic police. The Kurds naturally has a problem with the word police, as you can understand. They hate police. So they have seen Turkish police, Arabic police, Persian police, nothing good from them. So the question was, what kind of name should we give them? So then we decided, okay, police, we continue take over. And then what was happened, they got uniforms, but different to the regime police uniforms. But the problem, the people changed when they wear uniforms. So they start to pressure in the traffic, pressure the drivers, like they learned from the regime. But in the meantime, the people learned the police officers not allowed to shout on them. And every morning, hundreds of people are standing in front of the traffic police institution academy, say he has been shouting on me. So that's how revolution starts, that people understand nobody can oppress them. But in the meantime, you also, because the poor guy who was wearing the uniform, he didn't know how to act. How can the traffic police officer be democratic? Was the question. So because he has just seen concretely the traffic police of the regime which was shouting on him, humiliating him. That's what he learned. Now he has to think democratically, but how? So academies are playing this role. I have collected thousands of experiences, so it's human-made revolution. And whoever go to Rojava, I mean West Kurdistan, the yellow part, I say to them, people, we are implementing a new form of autonomy, but don't believe this is a paradise. It's human-made revolution. You will see Kurds who say, long live Öcalan, every day, 24 hours. Biji Serok Apo. But when it came to implementation, sometimes they say, oh, Bashar al-Assad is better. So one part of the brain is Abdullah Öcalan, the other part is still the old regime. What they learned from the old regime. What should I do? Offering them the space where they can decide, but not by pressure. With academies, we're helping them. Enlightening them. What is the main difference between two modernities? The capitalist modernity or democratic modernity? Deciding between two paradigms, one based on hierarchy, power, aggression, militarism, the other one, simple democracy. Not forcing the people. So you will, and I would say in 11 years, we achieved that. You know, in France, when the French Revolution happened, thousands of people have been killed for democracy. But here, nobody is killed because of democracy. You mean, I mean, that when you go to People's Council, you get crazy. People learn to speak. In the past, they couldn't speak because of the regime. But now you can't close their mouth. They're speaking for hours. And you get crazy, you must listen to them, speaking about nonsense. But speaking is important. So it was in the first 5 years of the revolution, I said, I can't stand here. No, it's too much. I don't have the patience. But seeing how people are going up like a flower was fascinating. And I said, this is revolution. So that's why it's not perfect, but helping them through
called freedom of
academicism.
speech.
Yeah.
Last question. Yes, one more question. You had mentioned in your speech how you guys are not the separatists, how that was a label that was used against you. However, all you want is to just exist in this region. If that is the case, are you facing is Kurdistan, the dream that you guys have, is that facing any opposition from international parties? If so, why is that? Why are they opposing it so much? And is it because of the oil that's present under the colored areas that is causing this conflict for them? Is that the reason they're not letting Kurdistan, the dream of Kurdistan, come true? What is the obstacle for it? Yeah, thank you.
You know, when we, I have to explain the map here. When you look from the perspective of Erdogan, so this part is already occupied by Turkey. And for his neo-Ottoman dream, he wants to annex this part as a former province of Aleppo in the Ottoman. This part was called the province of Aleppo in the Ottoman Empire. So he wants to get this back to Turkey. And also this part was called the province of Mosul, the whole Iraqi Kurdistan. He wants to get this back. But he can't. We are saying no. We are fighting Erdogan here and here. Don't let him come to here and to here. He thinks when the Kurds have here autonomy, and here already is all Kurdish, and they're in communication to each other here, all this, Turkey will have just bordering Kurds. National border with Turkey will be Kurds and here Armenia. Turkey will lose, when this part also communicate with the Kurds in Turkey, this Iranian part, Turkey will lose Iran as neighbor. Here Turkey will lose Arab as neighbors. So Turkey will be surrounded by Kurds, the main enemy. That's a terrible nightmare for Erdogan. But we say, Erdogan, why do you think like this? Why don't you overcome the British game? The British made us as a security problem of Turkey, Iran, Iraq, Syria. That's why we can't get in dialogue with these regimes. Even Stalin, can you imagine? I'm coming from this area, So this is ancient also, is it the area of the Kurds? The Kurds who converted to Islam very late are here. So thousands escaped to Armenia to overcome Ottoman and Turkish genocide. What Stalin did here, he said the Kurds here can cooperate every time with the Turks and Kurds here against the Soviet Union. He deported 250,000 Kurds until Siberia. Because the Kurdish card is a problem where the Kurds have been made to a security issue. So, and we can't convince Erdogan, say, listen, really, we can change the border, that's not the problem. So we have enough support to do this. This is our natural right because this is our ancient land. We haven't occupied Turkey. The opposite is, we haven't occupied Iran. The opposite. We haven't occupied Iraq. The opposite has happened. We haven't occupied Syria. But these parts have been given by Britain and France to the States. So we say to Turkey, Iran, Iraq, Syria, listen. When two are fighting, the third is rejoicing, and this was Britain. But they don't trust us, and we also have difficulties to trust them. So this is the problem, you see? We say, really, bring the Quran, we will swear. You say, no.
Well, one day we'll probably see a Kurdish flag flying over Turkey. Who knows? Erdogan may have to accept that. But thank you very, very much, Nilüfer. It was absolutely, very, very interesting to hear, your thoughts and your views. And of course, this fascinating map, which clarifies a lot of things that we've been wondering. Where is the northern Kurdistan? Where is western Kurdistan? So it makes a lot of sense. Thank you very much. Really appreciate
Thank
your
you. It was
wonderful.
so-